Hello again, everyone. In this video I'm going to be talking about a simple little repair on a Dell Studio 1550. Now these models are famous for the hinge screws to become loose over time during use. And with those loose hinges, what it causes is it causes the outer bezel edge to come loose and pop out. The outer bezel edge there also contains the power button on one end. Over time, with this being loose, the power button is held on by a screw and has three very small wires that are soldered to the PCB on the button. Those wires eventually pop off and you're left with no way to power on the laptop. The first thing we need to do here is remove the keyboard cover, and in this model it's just held down with one screw here underneath the battery. So we'll just go ahead and take this small screw out, flip the laptop back over, and then we can gently pry up on the keyboard cover to release it, pop it off. Okay, after that, now it becomes apparent with the way that the wires are routed that we're going to have to remove the bezel of the screen and also the keyboard. And actually the power button is plugged in underneath the keyboard. So we'll just go ahead and remove the keyboard from the laptop. And underneath there we'll expose the location where the power button is plugged in. So just gently pry up on the keyboard, releasing the snaps on the edges, and then gently release the ribbon cable from the motherboard. Then we can just simply set the keyboard aside. Next up, we're going to remove the bezel. So we'll take our small plastic tool. I'm using a spudger, and I will also slowly or gently wedge my fingers up under the front side of the bezel, pulling up and pulling away, unsnapping the bezel from the housing. So as usual, we want to use great care when removing the bezel. It's fairly fragile, shouldn't take a lot of force. And we also want to be careful here too, because at the top of this bezel where the camera is located, there's a magnet. And this magnet is what activates the sleep switch when the lid is closed. We also want to be really careful here about scratching the screen. We don't want to crack the screen. We don't want to put any excessive force on the screen itself. Just work your hands on the bezel only. So here is the magnet that I was talking about, and we see that's still in place, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay. Seen here are the screws that have worked their way loose, causing the hinge to appear to be loose, but it's not really the hinge, it's just the screws. And you can see here how they've just kind of worked their way loose, and it's causing all kinds of flimsiness in the hinge. And this in turn makes those outer bezel pieces kind of pop out of place. So we're going to repair these. We're going to seal these things back. Here you have the power button. And without the wire to it, it's done snapped off. So we're going to just go ahead and pull the wire harness out of the traces here. So as you pull this out, just take note of how the wire is actually routed, because with our new switch we're going to have to reroute this wire. And it just basically just pulls right up from out of the trace that it was in. And here is the actual model number of the part, the power switch, which you want to match up whenever you go to purchase your new switch. Our new switch has arrived. Nice and new. Comes complete with the wire, the PCB, the little plastic button itself. So now we just have to remove the old PCB from its support, and it's held on by one screw. Now in this case it looks like you only have to replace the actual PCB with the wire housing, the wire harness. The actual plastic button itself appears to be in good shape. So that's what we'll do here. I ordered the whole kit just in case. I think it's always safe to do that. So we'll just go ahead and remove the PCB. And we'll just swap it out with the new one, with the wire harness included. It's kind of small parts to work with, so take your time. If you've got large hands, this may be a little bit tricky, but you'll make it work. Put our screw back to hold the PCB in place. We'll just tighten that screw up nice and snug. And we'll just press the button a couple of times here just to see if we can feel it click. And now if you like, this would be a good time to probably go ahead and test this power button. Just plug it into its port, add some plug your laptop in, add power to it, and just turn it on just to be double sure that this power button is indeed functional. Now your wire management. We want to go ahead and get our wire housing back into our trace here. Just kind of use my spudger here to kind of work the wire back into its grooves. Now it's really important, I feel, that especially when you get up towards the hinge area, to pay special attention to how the previous routing was done. This is a real important area because this is where your hinge moves up and down, so we don't want to put any excessive force or tension on this cable, so just pay extra attention to that. Great. Okay. Now, this is how I'm going to secure the hinge screws, and this is only how I do it. If you have a better way, by all means, but I just want to prevent these screws from coming back out in the future. So I'm using flat out super glue. Now these screws are about halfway backed out. I'm dabbing super glue on them, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down. Now I feel this is a pretty good way of doing this. To cement these screws in so we don't create the same problem again in the future. May not be the best way, but it's how I do them. I haven't had very many returns on these at all doing them like this. I've done several of these laptops with the same issue. So if anybody's got any better ideas on how to secure these screws, hey, by all means, let me know. Leave some comments here in my channel. I've tried to use hot glue to hold these screws in, but I didn't feel very good about it. It didn't seem secure to me. So these are the two screws that are on the top part of the hinge. And we'll get those tightened down securely with the super glue. Now we also have two screws that are on the bottom part of the hinge on the base, and they're right here. There's one, there's one here, and there's one on the other side. So those two screws, we're going to probably just take those out altogether and apply some glue to them and put them right back in. So I just pull them out with my magnetic screwdriver. I'll stand my little screwdriver on end and just pretty much simply apply my glue gently. Small amount, don't need much. There we go. Good enough. Then we'll just go ahead and put this screw right back in nice and snug. And of course we'll do the same thing for the other side. And that's about it for securing these screws. Now basically, to finish the job, I just put the bezel back on and I hot glue the sides of the bezel back down, and that pretty much holds pretty well. As long as these screws don't come loose, you shouldn't have any more issues. Well everybody, that's it for this video. Hey, hit that like button and subscribe to my feed. I have lots more computer repair videos coming in the future, so stay tuned. See you next time.